Okay, and here we go. All right, we're moving into 10, top 10 period here. Andy's got Flick 'em Up, Dead of Winter version. William's running Scythe. I have Heaven and Ale, which finally broke my top 10. And Jenny's got 1960, Making of a President. So, Andy, we get to do more dexterity.
Oh, I tell you what, I love these suckers. And I picked Flick 'em Up Dead of Winter. I might have picked Flick 'em Up the regular game if I actually had Flick 'em Up, but we were picking from our collection itself. Flick 'em Up Dead of Winter is pretty fun because it mashes up two of my favorite things, which are dexterity games and zombie games. So they both show up. The drawback to this game is it takes a good deal of table space. And you have to have the right kind of a table. I don't think it works. There's some surfaces where it doesn't work very well because the pieces bounce off of it. It's a little bit fiddly and the rules are a little bit loose. But basically, there's different missions, and there's co-op missions where you're fighting against the zombies, and then there are competitive missions where some players are. I don't think there's ever a mission where you are not fighting against the zombies, but in the competitive, you have two teams of players that are fighting against each other and the zombies at the same time, I believe. And it mixes in some of the Dead of Winter stuff, which the Crossroads game system is super strong and is really, really good. I have a game higher up the list that's from Plaid Hat Games that iterates on the Dead of Winter Crossroads system, and so that's kind of lightly pushed into this game here. But really, the fun is getting to flick a little plastic knife across the table and take out 5 zombies. Like it's just a lot of fun to play. It's all the dexterity stuff, and it's got all the oops, I flubbed and my dude went half an inch, so now we're all going to get eaten by the zombies. And then every once in a while you have like a magical shotgun shot that takes out like 7 zombies when you're about to lose. It's just really fun. The drawbacks here are setup time, because there's a lot of stuff, and just if you don't like dexterity games, this is not going to be your bag. It's just not. But it's as long as you come at it with the right mindset, where it's just a light fun flicking things around the table. I just enjoy it a great deal.
So does it have like the social deduction aspect that Dead of Winter has?
No, it does not. So and that's some of the Crossroads stuff, but it does not have that at all. I mean, Dead of Winter has that. A big piece of the Crossroads is that every character they're working towards the group goals, but you also have your own victory condition as a sub condition that no one else knows, right? And so this is nowhere near as grim as Dead of Winter. Think of this as like a cartoony version of a zombie apocalypse. The zombies are just cute, and like there's not a lot of, they're not like super gory, scary zombies. Like we got Tiny Epic Zombies because Rosie really wanted to play it. And we haven't played it because Bear would get freaked out by the graphic imagery in the art. Flick 'em Up Dead of Winter mashup has none of that. It's very light. The zombies are all very cartoony. But basically every scenario gives you a map to set up, and you have these cardboard buildings and vehicles, and then you have these plastic obstacles, boxes and little barrels. And the original Flick 'em Up was originally all done with wooden components, and was outlaws and sheriffs kind of thing. And that's also on my list to get. I just haven't gotten it. I got this for a steal from someone who had bought it, and it was not their cup of tea. And so, and I tried it a little bit on a small table and a little coffee table in my living room, and it wasn't that fun. And then I played it on a much bigger 6 foot by 4 foot table that's set up for Warhammer 40K type of games. And so I just took all the terrain off and played it on that nice kind of like mouse pad type mat, and it was great. It was really fun.
Scythe.
Oh boy, I could like write an MPhil thesis on this one or something. So yeah, so this was the first really heavy game that our family got into, right? We were already into the hobby. We had already played a few Euros, you know, Agricola, Catan, Carcassonne, and things like that. And then we really liked the theme of this game, which is post-war World War One alternative history, basically. And it kind of mixes a bit of the, you know, American style fighting game, you know, and with the Euro game mechanics. You know, it's a bit of a war game with mixing with a Euro game, right? And with just just gorgeous artwork, right? So you see there from the box art, right? They've got like a bunch of farmers, but these crazy mechs in the background fighting, right? And that really sums up the game very well. It's, you've got like this production aspect of the game where you have to produce resources, and then you use those resources to fuel your military. So why we really like it is because it has those two aspects of war, you know, that it's not just about like throwing tanks. You have to think about the economical aspect as well. So it's a you know, one of the more famous hybrid games where it's a bit of a Euro game, a bit of an American style game as well. And really nice artwork, asymmetrical powers as well. You're playing as different factions. Each one has its specific thing, you know. And this game came in 10 because it was like, which game do you want to play now? That was my criterion, right? If it was your house is on fire, you can only take one game, I would take this game for sure. Because this is the game that I've most invested in like fancy components, because you can really go fancy on this game. This is very much what some people call a lifestyle game. You know, it's a game, this is a game that we've played over and over. My wife and I, we used to play it twice a week. You know, it would be her and I playing it on a Friday, and then on a Saturday, some friends would come over and we would do just like a 4 or 3 player game of this. So I've played this game over like with other people on a table over 100 times. The digital, it has a digital implementation, which I've played against the bots over 100 times as well. So I have a really high play count, and I've really analyzed this game very thoroughly. I won't get too much into that, otherwise it would take up too much of our time here. But yeah, it's just very well designed. Everything really interlocks together really well, and it doesn't seem like a frivolous war game, you know, in the sense that you have to really invest in your economy to be able to go out and fight other people. And there will be consequences to you doing all that fighting. And one of the consequences is that one of the great things, the brilliant things about this game is the popularity track. You know, if you fight too much, if you win too many battles, your popularity will go down, which is an end game multiplier. So sometimes you've beaten everybody up and you've ended the game, but your popularity was really low, that this guy who was just a pacifist minding his own business with really high popularity in the end beats you in points, you know. So very complex, very, very, very deep game. I mean, complex in terms of being deep. It's actually, for a game of that complexity, fairly okay to teach, I would say. You know, it's not that heavy in terms of weight, you know, but you can really go all out in like blinging the components as well. I spent like $200 to have the mechs be made out of metal, you know, which really just brings out the game and just gives it like this beautiful immersion, and like you're looking over a map of Eastern Europe, and you're really you feel like a general making their moves and putting their industries, etc. And the interesting thing for me is that it's set post World War One, so it's not a World War II game, but every once in a while it plays out exactly like the Eastern Front played out, you know, because you've got the Germanic forces, you have the Soviet forces, you have the people in the Urals, you have people in like Crimea, you have Nordic, you have Poland kind of a representation of. So it's really fun in that way because it's really immersive, really immersive. So this is a game that has a lot of love from the community. People love it, you know. After I played like over 50 times, you start seeing that, you know, that there are balance problems in this game, but you've got to play it like at least 50 times to notice it. If you're going to play this game 10 or 20 times, you have a blast. You have an absolute blast. Only at very high play counts do you start realizing that the balance for this game wasn't as well tuned as it could be for something that's going to survive 100 plays, or something like that. I do hope that at some day they release a second edition of this, fixing the balance issues, and hopefully, cross my fingers, maybe Jamie Stegmaier will listen to me and get me in as a consultant, to make up for all the time I've spent coding and doing stats analysis on this game. So yeah.
I'm fairly certain he doesn't watch us, but sure, we'll toss it out there.
You never know, man.
I love this game as well, William. It's not on my list because I don't own it. And I don't own it because you own it and you have all the fun blinged out components. So if I want to play it, I'm probably going to go play it with you and Brooke. But one of the things I really love about this game is it's a great intersection of beautiful graphic design and component design and mechanics. Like it all works really well, and at the same time it's beautiful. Some of the art on some of those cards in this game you could put up on your wall and it's just gorgeous. I mean, it's an alternate steampunk history, but it's a beautiful game. It's a table hog, but it's a beautiful game.
Yeah.
And it plays well. I'm not as enamored with it as a lot of people. And several people, I'm not saying anybody on this discussion, but several people take that as I don't like the game, and I don't think that's true. I think it's a good game. I think maybe I saw the balance issues earlier because just by location, random choice, I was in between two people with the weaker faction. In response to that, I did crazy things and confused people greatly, and it worked out well. I think it's a solid game. I think you're right, though, William. A second edition would solve cleaning up some of that. Would make me feel that it was, I still would say if I owned it, it would probably be in the top 100. I just don't know where.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, this game has, just to go very superficially here, has at least two balance issues, right? Because you have different factions, right? And you could say that some might be more powerful than others, but the player mat that you are given as well, each person gets a randomized player mat. Some player mats just have way better synergy with some factions than others, right? And so that's that. Like, one person's going to receive one combination that is just way more powerful. And this has been acknowledged by the designer. Like, a few months after the game came out, he's like, oh, we're going to have to ban this faction playing with this player mat because they can end the game in 14 turns, right? And then it was silent for a while, and then after a while people started realizing that another faction with another player mat was too powerful, and guess what? It got banned as well. So they're having to, like, patch this ship, as it's moving, to try to fix it. When I think you just need to, like, rebalance a bunch of things, just do a second edition. On top of that, the different actions, the different resources, this is what really comes in after like 50 plays. You realize that the different resources have crazy different values. Some resources are much better than others, which tends to, like, really bottleneck the strategies. Now you see in tournament play, people really just going for that one same strategy, and whoever can rush it the fastest wins, and that kind of takes out a bit of the fun of the game. That one resource is way more valuable than the others, So it's all about, there's still, like, what people do is bidding, right? So now you bid for the faction and you bid for the player mat, but I still think that overall there's a lot to be, like, rebalanced in this game. Because the problem is there are a total of 7 factions and 7 player mats, which means you have 49 possible combinations, right, that you could do, right? That's really difficult to balance, because there's 49 different things that one person can have. And you're looking at, And this game, you know, the final version of it was play tested 200 times, you know, which is just not enough for something with that much variability, you know. So yeah.
Well, if he contacts me, I'll send him to you. Heaven and Ale. I've talked about this before. This is a Euro. It uses a rondel type mechanism, and you can go as far as you want on it to get what you want, but you can't ever go backwards. And the theme is you're a bunch of monks and people trying to brew beer. The theme is pointless. It makes the artwork, but that's about it. You really, as you get materials, you put them on either the darker side of the farm or the lighter side of the farm. The lighter side of the farm allows you to move resources up, and that leads to end of game scoring. The other side gives you money to get the resources, to put the resources down on the brighter side to get you more materials for your end game score. Now, you are getting points at the end of the game for the most part, but if you achieve certain goals, you actually get those during the game. And we got it through Facebook Marketplace in Michigan. I'd heard about it, but I got it, played it, and loved it. That was a good trip to Michigan. Is the theme there? Not really. I mean, you got to get your brewmaster up, and you got to get the materials up. And the end of game scoring is probably the most unique thing. You will get points based off where your brewmaster is and where your lowest resource is. So you get 4 points for each of the lowest resource, or 3 points for each of the lowest resource. And you're trying to kick it up. So you're trying to make sure you get enough money to put the things on the correct side to activate them. And how you activate them is surround towns or various actions that allow you to activate certain parts of your farm. It turned out to be really fun. I think it's a great, fun economic game. It is a medium weight because there's a lot of decisions and how you set it up, but there's no dice rolling. The only luck is the order that the material tiles come out on your track to pick them up. Everything else is your choice. Very tight economy, and it works out really well. I've enjoyed it. I think Jen's enjoyed it too, but not as much as I do. So
well, it's in my 70s, and I think for me, where it loses is what he says is themeless. I don't feel like I'm making ale at all. No, I told Ray when we finished the game, I wasn't making ale. They're just, no, not there. And I would much rather have I don't need a ton of theme. I mean, there's certainly many themeless games I like. Lords of Waterdeep, for instance, it could be anything. But I really got frustrated because as I'm putting stuff out, it didn't make, at least in Lords of Waterdeep, I feel like, okay, I understand I'm going to do this mission. I can make the theme work in my head. Here, the theme didn't even work in my head because I never put the ingredients together to make a beer. It wasn't like Scoville where I got to make chili. I didn't feel like I ever got to do this, but I mean, it's a really good, and we've discovered Ray really loves that mechanism where you can go as far as you can, but depends on what you're giving up. I think that's one of his kind of current favorite mechanisms in a game. So it's a good game. I said I was just checking. It's my 74. I like the game. I think why it's in my 70s where it's in Ray's is because of the theme. If I felt the theme more, I think it would be much higher.
So Michael Kiesling is the same guy that did Azul, right? I just checked, right? You see any similarities between them?
No.
No.
I mean,
I'm interested.
I'm putting things down, but no, they're not that I can think of. Next time I play it, I'll sit down and go, is this close? But it's definitely, I can't see it right off the top of my head.
Yeah, I definitely want to play this one because I have that thing like if I like a game by one designer, I want to play all the other games that he's made, right? So yeah.
All right. Jenny, we're making a president.
Okay, we got another historical. So this is GMT, and this is a game that I'd always wanted. Well, they finally remade it a couple of years ago, and I pre-ordered it. And they wouldn't ship to Alaska. We had to ship it to Ray's dad in Michigan, and then we brought it home the next time we went out to visit. I really enjoy the aspect. I like the historical nature, and the Kennedy-Nixon 1960 election is just a fascinating election. It's a really important one. So I love all the historical aspects of that. I think they did a really good job of putting in all the different pieces that make it such a cool election to study. And I have not won yet Nixon, but this is my ultimate goal, is I will win as Nixon. You know, I'm going to upset history, but it's a great game. We've really enjoyed our plays of it. And I think setup is even not too bad. I mean, it's a longer game. Make no mistake, you're not going to do, but it's similar in a lot of regards. If you like something like Twilight Struggle, you're going to like this game. It has a lot of similar mechanisms, but a really great historical one. You're going to really feel the flavor if you want the historical aspect as well. Like if you want to teach your kids about the 1960 election, here you go.
Yeah, this is definitely on my list of games I want to try, partly because I am fascinated by the 1960 election. I listened to a podcast series last year called Raise the Dead, which is about this election cycle and this specific election. And it was a fascinating listen. And it was there's a lot I don't know about that particular election that I've since kind of dug into a little bit. So that makes this game, I mean, the theme makes this game something I want to try.
Well, it's a good game on top of it, but yeah, all the little cards have, you know, the little information on them. So, you know, as you read, if you're someone who knows a lot about the 1960 election, it's going to make it even better. But they've done a great job of balancing the game. Our plays, Ray has managed to pull off the Kennedy victory every time, but it's been tight. Like, you know, I'm going to make it as Nixon. And this is just, you know, my personal weird goal.
Well, you want to upset history, but you also, Twilight Struggle, you also always play the Russians. So, however, I have to play the Klingons every time in Star Trek. So,
Sensing themes here.
I'm very particular in that I tend to be, okay, if you're going to make me do this, you have to let me play the good guys. And we all know, you know, that this can be a matter, you know, but there's certain things when I will do it. Like, I don't mind. I will almost always play the Soviets, even though, you know, if you talk to someone who grew up in the Cold War, you know, they're the bad guys. I don't mind it. I actually don't mind playing the Germans in Memoir. So, you know, I have my things, but yeah, like, I don't want to be the Klingons. I don't want to be the bad guys in Lord of the Rings when he makes me play it. Though I figured out how to break Lord of the Rings, and I broke Brace Brain.
free people don't win a military. I called people for that one. I was like, the free people won a military victory. I said, not possible. I said, my wife just did it to me. I'm closing the game up for the rest of the day. I'll talk to you later.
Is this in War of the Ring?
Yeah.
Oh, such a good game.
She went north. Nobody goes north.
I went north and won a military victory. It was sweet.
That's awesome.
9. Okay, a game that I really want to play, the Gallerist. And then we've talked about Dice Throne here. Jenny's got some Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle, and we want some giant miniatures for no reason but giant miniatures.
I'll be right back with some gratuitousness.
Cool.
All right, William.
The Gallerist, right? So this is not only the heaviest game in terms of rule weight, right? But it is the physically most dense game that I have, because I got the dimensions for it. I calculated the volume of the box, you know, and so the weight divided by the volume is the dense, and it's more dense than Gloomhaven, right? It is a small box and very heavy, you know, because it's all, there's almost no plastic. I don't think there is any plastic in it. I don't think. It's all wood and cardboard, very layers and layers of wood and cardboard, you know. This is a economic simulation game. It's a pure Euro, modern Euro game. Very, very heavy, a lot, very fiddly rules and everything, but the rules aren't fiddly. I'll talk to where it gets fiddly a bit later. You know, it's you're running an art gallery, so what you're trying to do is you're trying to meet new artists, buy their work, promote the artist, make so that their work sells for more than it used to, and then sell their works of art to make a profit, yada yada, you know. So it's got like a worker placement aspect of like, what are you going to do this turn? Are you going to discover a new artist? Are you going to promote that artist, whatever? But it also has a weird area control element to it, because there are the people who are going to go into your art gallery, right, to look at the works of art. So you have some control over them as well. You want to make sure, you want to pull customers in to your gallery, right? And the customers come in 3 different types of flavors. You know, there are people who give you more popularity, people who give you more money, and people who give you more influence, you know. And so there's this weird area control thing, or you're trying to pull customers into your gallery. You're doing the worker placement thing on top of that, you know. And the worker placement isn't just normal worker placement like Uwe Rosenberg style, where you took the action, now no one else can take it. No, you took the action, but someone can also take that action, and then you might be able to take that action again out of turn if you play the right amount of influence to do it. A lot of fiddly mechanisms in this game, but the presentation, again, you've probably noticed that I tend to go for games that are aesthetically pleasing. This game is like very beautiful, you know, and the interlocking of the mechanisms is very interesting. Where it gets super fiddly is that not only do you have this worker placement with area control on top of it and economic simulation, right? Every action that you take or everything that you do has a bonus applied to it, which is randomized. They're like these little tiles that are bonuses, you know. And for the person that's playing it for the first time, there's just an iconography there. So you have these 2 wine lists of bonuses that you have to look at to figure out what it is that you're going to get, right? So at first, like it says like it's going to be like a 2-hour game. But when I played it with people, it took like 4 hours to play just to get them over the rules, all the fiddly bits of the rules. The kind of like the feel of the game is very easy to get. You're like, oh, I see, you know, I'm discovering an artist, I'm buying his painting, I'm selling his painting, I'm promoting the artist, you know, that kind of thing. That's kind of easy to grasp how the theme mixes with the mechanics. But it's just the fiddliness of all the bonuses that are scattered all over the board, because you go like, what the hell do I do, you know? So it's one that's been very difficult to get people into, right? I've had a few occasions where I taught this game to people for the first time, and after I've set it up, they're like, I have no clue what to do. What do I do? But if you're a fan of Euro games and heavy games, this is a treat. You know, people who really like Euro games. I played it with Cara once, and she's like, yeah, I want to play this again. You know, I definitely want to play this again, because it's one that's very difficult to grok. It just doesn't get that much playtime because my wife hates it, you know, because you literally just have an alternative job as a person who's running a gallery. So at one point you gotta like hire assistants. You gotta, you know, acquire a contract. And she's like, you know, I'm running a law firm during the day. I don't want to be running something else during the night where I have to like get a secretary and then get a contract and then file the contract. I don't want to do that. I want to ride a tank into the battlefield, you know. So that's that aspect to it, you know, that it feels a bit like, you know, you just got a different job basically, and that's what you got to do. But yeah, but it's an experience, right? So I definitely want to get it to the table because it's gorgeous, and the quality of the components is just amazing, right? And yeah, and it's just like a modern Euro game. You know, I have a lot of classic Euro games in my collection. This one is a more modern one. It came out in 2015, and Vital Lacerda is kind of like a hotshot right now. You know, everyone's talking about all his games, Kanban, and CO2, and he's doing a game about Mars as well. He's the guy who does the super heavy modern Euros. So you got to play one of his games at least once.
This is on my list, so
Yeah, I
as
actually
well.
want to. Yeah, mine too. Like, I love worker placement. Might be a little too heavy for me, but I'm willing to try it once.
I don't think it'll be too heavy for you. So,
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think you guys will be fine.
dice thrown. We've talked about this before. I'm going to roll dice. Then I'm going to do it again because it's me and it's a Yahtzee mechanic. Then I'm going to do it again, and then I'm going to be disappointed because my 3 are done, and I just get to shoot you in the face with a bazooka instead of a satellite laser. No, this is a great game. There is parts to it that you don't expect from a dice game. The biggest thing is the card play. There's cards, and you've got command points. I play 40K command points. You've got their CP. I can't remember specifically off the top of my head what they stand for, but they let you play cards out of your hand that can adjust the dice, that can change the way things are going, that might actually upgrade your actions, like Jennie was talking about. You can upgrade your defense or your attack. It's a really fun game with lots of options. It can take up a lot of space. I have the season 1, I've got season 2, and I kickstarted the Adventures, which is a co-op that uses them. I don't know. I haven't played the co-op yet. That might, Jen will play this anytime I ask her, but she's not going to ask for it. But I wonder if the co-op will help. But there's so much variety and just fun in this one. If you're looking for a Gallerist level game, this is not where you go. But if you want to just do a face-to-face, this is a really fun one.
Combat points, Ray. Just looked it up. Combat
points. All right, combat points it is. CP. All right. Harry Potter.
So deck building was probably my first love. You can tell by my thing, it's moved to worker placement, but it started out deck building. And I still love a good deck builder. And there's a lot of deck buildings in my top 100. And if we went down, you'd find a bunch more. Dominion is still number 31. I mean, I have a bunch in that one, but this one, I love the theme because I've read all the books, seen all the movies. We just started our 10-year-old on book 1 of it, and I'm looking forward to once he gets through book 1, I want to take this apart and start game 1, box 1 with them. And this is really great because you've got someone brand new to deck building. The box 1 is so simple. There's no, as a gamer who's played a bunch, you have to start in box 3 because box 1 is too easy. But for teaching, it's awesome. And plus, there's so many people who just really go, oh, I love Harry Potter. And so it's easy. Oh, Harry Potter, of course I'll play that. And you very much feel the theme. And the beauty of it is it's very much a co-op in that when it's your turn, you can give stuff to other players and other players can help you. And a lot of co-ops feel very much that, yeah, we're making the same goal, but my turn is my turn. I can't do anything for you on yours. You can't do anything for me. On my turn, I'm giving you coins. I'm giving you health points. I'm doing all this kind of stuff. And so that really does it. And the expansions, I mean, they're hard. Again, it's really easy to beat box 1, even box 3, but you get up to box 7, it's hard to beat. And there's certainly some combos that just, you're going to lose. You look at it and go, okay, this is going to be over in three rounds. You know, Bellatrix gets out there. You get a Death Eater. You get there's just mixes that can just kill you. But we haven't played the Charms expansion yet, but we have it down there. I'm excited to play it. We've finished Monsters, and hard, but really enjoyable. So I love it. And if you're a Harry Potter fan, it's a great gateway game.
Yeah, we've played the heck out of this one, so it's definitely a good one. All right, Andy, do you got the big ones?
I do. Well, some of them I didn't. I was not going to go dig through my garage. So Cthulhu Wars. This is not a coffin box game, but a series of coffin box games that are all one game. So, William, you were talking about verticality of miniatures. I actually have bigger ones from this game in the garage, but this is Cthulhu, and he is taller than my head, like from my chin to my top of my and every large god. This is Haster from the Yellow Sign faction, and this is an asynchronous area control game. It's very modular. It has a series of expansions that are totally different maps with totally different rule sets for the maps. I fell into the, it's first of all, it's a really expensive game. This game is just dumb in terms of the cost of it if you would pay full MSRP. So when they did the Kickstarter for their whole Cthulhu Wars last time around, which was their third Kickstarter because they keep adding more and more to this game, it was over $700 for the entire game to get everything. And I had the base game, and I had a friend who really loved the base game and got everything. And then about a year after that, decided he didn't want a closet in his house that was entirely full of Cthulhu Wars, and sold it to me for a screaming deal. So I also have everything, and I have not even begun to scratch the surface of everything. So it's an area control game, but it's 10 asynchronous factions. And depending on how many people are playing, that changes which map you choose. So the base map goes to, I think the core box comes with 4 factions. So the base map is 4. And then if you go bigger than 4, there's actually a larger map. And this struggles from the same problem that Rising Sun does, which is they made these amazing, huge miniatures that take up so much table space that they overpower the board. They're so large that I find the same thing with this game as I do with Rising Sun, but even more so with Cthulhu Wars, that they have these big, beautiful miniatures that just take over the board. That said, this is one of my probably top 2 area control type of games. That's pure area control. There's other games that I like that have area control as a component more than these 2. But as far as pure area control, this is one of my absolute favorite ones. Every faction works in a different way. Some of them teleport around. Some of them work really well by messing with other people. Some of them work really well by corrupting the world. Basically, it's a post-apocalyptic setting. Think of it as post-apocalyptic Risk with a Cthulhu theme added to it. But they have all these other different ones. Like the one that I want to play next is based on Lovecraft's Dream in a Library story. And so they have the Library of Solano, and they have the Librarian, and they have all of these, and it's a multi-floor map, and it's all of this. So it takes the base game, and you're still playing with these different asynchronous factions, and any of the 10 factions can be played. But it changes the game. So your win conditions are totally different in the expansions. That said, I don't know how long I'm going to hold on to all of this stuff. It is a ton of stuff. It takes up a ton of space. But it's a very solid game, and I think that it has legs in that you could play this game for months and months and months and months and months. It's you know, it has just an insane amount of replayability to it. And if you like post-apocalyptic settings, and you like the Cthulhu mythos, this is a game that you're going to love. You know, it's designed by Sandy Peterson, who's the guy who did the Call of Cthulhu RPG. They've got an ongoing series of D&D 5th edition adventures and resource books if you want to run Cthulhu D&D adventures. It's a really good game. I wish that it was at a price point that was more approachable. The core game is $200, which is crazy. And the only reason it's that way, that it costs $200, is because you have a bunch of these in the box. Because the rest of it's good quality components, but you know, the expense clearly was put into the miniatures.
They just put out a Cthulhu Wars Duel 2-player version.
They did, yeah, and I think that's part of their way to try to address people's complaints about both the price point and the size.
Yeah.
My concern there is this is a game that really shines at 6 people, at 5-6 players. That's where this game really becomes fun. It's fun as 4, but it's more fun as you get even larger player counts, and Duel takes some of that out. So that said, it's a really solid game. So I just don't know how it'll work as a Duel. I'm interested to see that. I haven't watched any videos on it.
I've enjoyed every one of my plays with this, and I'm not a Cthulhu fan. I will say they could have saved $50 by getting the giant miniatures half the size that they are, and they'd still be double the size of every other miniature in the game.
They'd still be freaking huge. Yeah, no, it's absurd. It feels like a very American game. Make it very large. Large as possible. Bigger is better, always.
I wasn't going to say anything because I'm outnumbered, but I agree.
Yeah. No, that's okay. So, Jennie, you've played this one, right? What did you think of this one?
It's not my type of game. I mean, I always have fun with the plays in the group, but I don't like Cthulhu. I don't like area control. And I really could care less about miniatures. So unfortunately, it's kind of 3 strikes and you're out with me. It's not that I won't play the game. I think it's a good game. I don't see anything wrong with it, but those are none of the things that I'm going to do. And that's just some of my preferences. Obviously, I think there's a lot of people who just love those overpowered huge miniatures and they're willing to pay the money for it. So of course they're going to produce them. I would rather have cardboard standees and save me the $50-$75.
No, I think that's a fair criticism. And I think that this is a game that would be just as good with small little cardboard chits on a much smaller map. It would play just as well. It would play just as smoothly. It wouldn't have the same impact that all the large miniatures have. But again, I think it's excess. I don't feel the need for all of these miniatures. And for that price point, that really puts it out of the price range of most people who are going to be like, this is not a game you get casually. It's just too expensive for that.
Well, and then it's also, as you said, your friend got rid of it because I don't have a closet. It's also the space issue. You're someone living in a little apartment. You're not, that's then the only game you can have, because you can't take it up in the space. And so I think that, Ray and I have been discussing this, that we wish in Kickstarter there was options. Okay, I want every miniature in the full size, or I want just the cardboard base version. I'll pay half the price. And I wish more games did that where you had that option.
The Great Wall, I backed it with the meeples instead of the giant miniatures. Yeah,
and that game looked pretty good too. I can't wait for that one to actually land. Yeah, I know that I find that kind of frustrating. What do you guys think about? Well, this is an aside. Let's not get into Mad Ludwig Kickstarter, but I want to know later what you think about the colossal Mad Ludwig Kickstarter versus the core King Ludwig.
We're moving on to 8, and then we'll talk about that one. So I've got Rome. Jennie's got Rococo. Andy's running with Eldritch Horror, and then a game I have never heard of. Oriflamme?
Oriflamme.
Oriflamme. So
it's French, yeah.
Bonjour. Oh.
Well, and Ray pretty much failed French, so that explains so much of it.
That is not true. I passed with a C, and that was 22 years ago. Remember, I'm old now. Rome. One of the things about Red Raven games is I love their small games. Better than their large games. He can pack a lot of game into a small box, and this is unique. It's area control, but you have people that you can send out to put out your tokens to say I control these areas. When you fill up one of the areas, if you could take that area, flip it over, and it's another person with a different way to put down tokens. So it's area control. And then what happens is when you have everybody flipped over, so they've all done their actions, you flip them back over again. You can also get artifacts that give you abilities to do that. You have coins, those coins to buy artifacts, but also you've got blank spots that are outlined on some of the cards. So you can put extra tokens down if you pay. So you're bouncing around filling it out, trying to fill out different cards. And each of the cards have various points. So you're gaining the ability to gain more control as you get more areas that are controlled. But every time you get a new space, so a new person, the other person, if they were on it, gets a coin. So they build up so that they can actually buy to fill in more spots. Or flip one of their people over early. This is an area control game that I think my wife tolerates better than most. Artwork is still amazing. It's kind of funny because it's kind of there's an anime out there called Dr. Stone where humanity essentially was turned to stone for 1,000 years or something. This is a similar story. Everybody was put into essentially a sleep, and people are waking up and you're finding them. And it's like after you search that area, and that's what it is, you find this person, and this person was doing something like hitting a rock with another rock. Or some of them are funny, like a guy was fishing with a garbage can lid. And you're just like, oh, okay. And so the flavor text is funny, but the gameplay, it's quick, it's effective, but it is an area control game, and it is quite and can be quite vicious. So
Yeah, this is my 58, so it's definitely an area control game I like over others. I really like that you get something when you lose a card, and I think that really makes up for me in some of it, so I really enjoy it. We just played this a couple nights ago, and Ray won. He almost always wins, but you know, one of these days I'll beat him.
let's talk about dressmaking.
Okay, well, and Ray likes this game too. He'll talk about it later, but I love this game, and this is a game that I was intrigued about because of the theme, and I do very much feel like you're making dresses. They just redid this with this like modern theme. I have absolutely no interest. I like this version. I like the pretty, dresses and the whole, Louis XIV vibe that's going on. I like that. But if you like a more modern feel, they just put out a new one that's all more modern. But anyways, really like it's actually a really thinky game. It's there's card management, and there's worker placement, and there's a certain amount of area control even in the different floors. So there's a lot of different pieces to this game that give it a lot of weight. There's a lot of moving pieces in this game. And yes, you feel like you're making dresses, but it's not so overpowering that it's like, oh, it's girly or anything like that. Because as I said, Ray really enjoys this game. And there's a lot of pieces to this. The components are really nice. The board's gorgeous. It just all works together and giving you that great play feel when you're done. And definitely one of probably the heavier games on my list because, again, there's so many working pieces. You definitely need to be paying attention to all those pieces, or you're going to miss the customers, or you're not going to get your dresses made. You really have to think about the order you do everything in.
This one is definitely heavier than people give it credit for. I've heard some people say it's a heavy Euro. It's approaching there. I don't know if we're not talking brass Birmingham, but there's a lot going on, and there's a lot in it, and you have different types of workers, which is something that both Jennie and I like. So
yeah, I think Shut Up and Sit Down did a review of the deluxe edition. Is that what you mean by when you say the new version of it?
that's what she meant. It is the deluxe version. They changed all of the graphic design. It's not necessarily modern dresses, but it's definitely it's more modern looking, even though time frame wise. So
Yeah, that one looks fun to me.
we get to kill Cthulhu?
Well, sort of. You get to kill a randomly chosen elder god. It just depends on who you get. You might get Sasasas, as I like to call him. So this is Fantasy Flight. So it's 1 million components. It's a map of the world. This game has replaced Arkham Horror in my collection. Arkham Horror is a fantastic game that I enjoy very much, but it takes a really, really long time to play. And this game is just, it's a newer game from the same design studio. It's smoother, it works better. I know there's a new version of Arkham Horror that's supposed to also be very good, but Eldritch Horror is really fun. Basically, you have a world map. You have to go around the world and investigate different things, and you increase your stats. One of the things I really like about this game is that if your investigator dies or goes insane, then you can go back to where they died or went insane, and you can go loot their old supplies. It's also not very punishing in that it's punishing in the sense that you lose that investigator's special ability, but you can come right back in with another investigator on the next turn and try to continue to defeat the great old one. So there's death in it and madness, but it's not that punishing. It's not super heavy on the madness theme. It's not super dark. It is Cthulhu, so there's definitely, there's always the great old ones encroaching and trying to take over the world. It's a really good game for large player counts. It's a game that takes a long time to play. It's not a short game. I've had games of this run 4 hours easily, but it's just a really fun explore. It is a true co-op. You have to work with your team. Everybody has to be working together for this to be successful. It is prone to alpha gamer, but it's crunchy enough that alpha gamers aren't usually able to take it over because there's just a little too much to kind of hold all in one person's head going on at any one time. But this is one of my favorite Cthulhu themed games. Not my favorite. It was supplanted by another game last year. But this was my favorite Cthulhu game. And I only have, I think, 4 on my list or 3 on my list. I don't know. But I probably have gone through 20 different Cthulhu games over the years. It's one of my favorite bits of mythos to live in. I really, the more I learned about Lovecraft, the less I liked him as an individual. But there's been some movement, and I think these games are some of the movements that has happened to kind of take the interesting world, post-apocalyptic world, and that dark world and that mythos that he created, and kind of remove it from his misogyny and racism and those other problematic things that you encounter when you read his literature. So there's been a whole movement to kind of pull that world away from that, even though he was the creator. And this is one of those things, and I think it's a really good game.
Yes, but is Sister Mary in it?
Yes.
Yes, because we got the expansion from you guys
Okay,
with
that's
Sister
important.
Mary in it. So yes,
So
you can
you'll
be
play
a
it.
nun with a shotgun.
Yes, because that was the best part of Arkham Horror, was being the nun with the shotgun.
I don't disagree.
We had
Being
2
the hobo was
bruisers.
pretty fun too.
We had 2 bruisers walking around, running away from everything, and little nun with a shotgun takes out, well, this vampire's really being an aggravation.
It just walks in and clears all the streets, clears all the rooms. I think for us too, Arkham Horror had just kind of we had played so much of it, it just kind of got a little played out. So we needed to replace it with a game that was a similar theme that we enjoy, but different mechanics. And the same characters, like all the stuff in the Fantasy Flight games, they reuse the same Cthulhu characters in the same Cthulhu setting.
All right, William, Oriflamme. You're muted. Sorry.
I'm muted. Sorry. Yeah. So this game, Brooke found out about this game. I think she was just wandering around Bosco's, right, wearing masks and everything, and she saw it and she was like, "Well, this looks interesting," because she's She's a big medieval history buff as well. She subscribes to a magazine called Medieval Warfare, right? And she's like, Oriflamme, really interesting. And I was a bit like, wow, we don't know what the hell this is. I don't know who these designers are. What the hell is this game, right? But then later, I think one of the podcasts that I listened to, I can't remember which one it was, mentioned it and mentioned that it was very interesting. And then I just read the rules to the game, right? Because it's just like one piece of paper of the rules. And I'm like, this looks really interesting. And then we got it and we were like really surprised by how just fascinating and simple this game is. It's pretty much a filler, right? You can play it in maybe 20 minutes, half an hour at most, right? What happens is everybody gets dealt a hand of 10 cards, right? Each person has their own deck. So when the cards are face down, you know who that card belongs to, right? Because they all have their own little color. You get dealt a hand of 10, you shuffle it, and you take out 3. So everyone has kind of the same cards, but not exactly the same hand. And then on your turn, it goes around clockwise order. You just place one card face down in the center of the table. And then the next person can either place one to their left or to their right, right? That's just what's going to happen. You're going to form this row of cards, right, in player order. But once that's done, you go to the second phase of the game, where proceeding from left to right, so it's no longer the play order when you place the cards. Now it's the order in which the cards have been laid out. You have a choice. You ask the person who placed it, do you want to put a victory point on that card, or do you want to flip that card over? If you place a victory point, you gain a victory point for the end of the game. If you flip it over, you do the card's effect, which could be killing the card right next to it because you just flipped over a soldier and he's going to stab the person next to it. Or it could be an archer, which is going to kill the card which is on the other end of the line of cards, right? So you either monetize a card with victory points, or you flip it over to take an action to maybe take out someone else's card. There are also cards where once you flip it, what happens is you double the amount of victory points that was on the card, so that you take twice the amount of victory points. Once a card is flipped over, it can no longer be monetized with victory points. So that's the basic mechanic of the game. And it just like melted my brain because this is something that has like this crazy interaction with player order, because you're like, so which card is going to get flipped first, and what do I put down? Do I want to put like victory points? So there's a lot of bluffing in this game. You know, there's a lot of tactics and trying to read what the other person is trying to do. You know, and this thing of, you know, the play order, that there's no longer not only who's going to put down a card first, but which card is going to get activated first. So the box is tiny. This box is just like the box for the size of Fox in the Forest, basically. You know, so it just has a deck of cards and the victory point chits. You know, but it's got some very complex mechanics, and you can get cards next to each other that can form really powerful combinations. You know, and so we've played it like 4 or 5 times so far because we got it very recently. But it's one that I want to play again because like it's one of those games where like I have no clue what I'm doing. I have no clue how to play this game. You know, some games you're just like, oh, this is just figuring out the probabilities, or this is just optimizing the thing that I need to optimize. This one gets me completely confused, and it's very light and very short. And so far, everyone who's played it has really enjoyed it. So this is one that I definitely want to bring to the table because it's pretty much a filler.
That sounds really fun, William.
Yeah.
Yep. We're going to have to try that one. Number 7, Jennie's got Rurik down at Kiev, and he's running the ice cool. We got Dominion, and then I bring up the rear with Dice Hospital, where you don't have to roll the dice much.
Okay, this is a game we kickstarted, and we kickstarted because I saw the theme and I'm like, well, I want it. Because medieval Russian history is totally my thing. So I was super excited about that, but this is a really awesome game. So when we opened the box, I'd bought in the theme, it looked cool, you know, we watched the Kickstarter. We opened the box, then we saw, oh, we have to like draft stuff, and we thought, oh shoot, we're gonna hate this because we play most games 2-player. And so we really had this major concern that, oh, this isn't going to work for us. We're ended up not liking it. And Ray was already in love with the components, the way the box fit together and the component trays. Ray already was in a love affair with this game before it even we'd got to that. But we're oh, it's not. But it worked beautifully 2 players. It just it was, you were still tense about where you were playing stuff, even in a 2-player game. And you could really, screw the other player up if they weren't paying attention, because you place on this action board, and you place where you want to go, in the order your meeples are in matter, but there's numbers on them, and those also matter. And so it's a fascinating, and it works just beautifully 2 players. And there's this area control mechanism, which again is not usually my forte, but historical, if I can see the theme, I can work on it. And it's got the actions, that worker placement I like, because your workers are going out, but then you're trying to control parts of, the Rus map. And so, you get certain things. And then you can also even kind of have an economic, because there's this trading aspect and you're collecting goods, and you can make a lot of points off those goods if you get the right one. And again, that matters on what you control, and you're building different buildings, and those buildings give you powers. And it's just a really awesome, and it works really well because the board has different colors, and based on your player count, you play with only a certain part of the board. So in a 2-player game, you only play with the kind of center of the board, but then in a 3 or a 4-player game, you're going to be playing with more of the board. So it has that great way that it levels up, and it works for any player count. So this is a game that we were super excited about because the theme, and it looked good, but then when we came, we were kind of a little worried, and it surpassed our expectations. And it surpassed Ray's love of organizational trays. Andy, you would just love the organizational trays. And it comes with a map of how to put everything back in the box.
Map.
That I just looked at pictures. That looks great. By that I mean the organization, and I love the components too. I love the that. See, that's what they need. Like, more games need to do that, where they still have good quality miniatures that they look cool and they add to the experience of playing the game, but they don't have to be, a foot tall, right? Yeah, no, that one looks really fun. I'm looking forward to getting that one, or getting that one to the table with you guys.
This one's great. The auction mechanic had us worried, but it turned out that it worked out pretty well. So
I look forward to. We've never played this anything but 2-player at this point. Because we played this for the first time during lockdown. It's been on a well of shame, and we played it during lockdown. And so we've played it several times, but we have yet to play it, with more than 2 players. And I think it's really going to be interesting to see how this does, because I think it'll work really well at 3 and 4. I think it's actually going to shine at 3. That's my thing. And
Nice.
there's not a lot of games that do well at 3. And I think this one is going to work at 3.
So I think this is the same designer as Dice Hospital, which is are we on number 7, right?
yep, sure are.
Yeah, so that the design is the same one as Dice Hospital, which is why Sten Kordonsky is in number 3 in terms of the design account, because Rurik shows up on both of yours and Dice Hospital shows up on both of yours, maybe.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, I was wondering, because that was a name I'm not familiar with. So.
Well, we're familiar with this, especially if
Oh.
you flick the nose.
That's the worst. I think I still have a divot in my fingernail from one of those damn penguin noses. This is ice cool. This is probably my favorite dexterity game, and I love dexterity games. This is a children's game. It is delightful. It's marketed towards kids. It was made for kids. The iconography is real cutesy, cartoony, kiddish. The box is really, the design is something I really love about this game. You open the box, and then you take out all of the boxes inside the box, and you clip them together with little wooden fish that come in the game. And you have created a game board out of the I think it's 5 boxes nested, or 4 boxes nested within the main box. And then you take turns being the person who chases everybody else around the box. And so you take turns being the chaser and then being the penguins that are running away from the other penguins. And you get points based on, you know, and the people who are running away are trying to go through all of the doors, so they have to go near the chaser, which adds tension to the game. And then as you play it, you learn that there are ways you can hit the little, they're like weeble wobble, you know, if you remember the weebles, they wobble like that, right? So they wobble, but they don't fall down kind of thing. There's a heavy counterweight in the bottom of these things. And you can flick them around corners if you know how to flick them around corners. So they'll roll on the side and you can have them roll around corners. You can jump them over walls. So they'll jump from one room into another room. You can just slide them straight across. You can ricochet. It's just delightful. It is just so pleasant an experience to play this game. It's so fun. You can get real competitive with it, or you can just have a lot of fun flicking your penguin. And I don't think I've had a single game where someone hasn't totally screwed up their attempt to send the penguin through a door and then just started laughing out loud. Like, it is just so fun. I do want to pick up, if you guys ever see a copy of it, let me know. I'll get it and I'll pay you back for it. Ice Cool 2, because I don't have that. And Ice Cool 2 was a mass market game that came out at Target. And it is basically 4 different colored penguins and another set of nesting boxes, but they designed it so that you could put both Ice Cool and Ice Cool 2 together to create a giant table size set of rooms and play 8-player Ice Cool, which just sounds like a lot of fun to me. It was only $20 or $30 at the time, and I saw it and didn't buy it because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like Ice Cool. This is before I played the core game. And I have played the heck out of this game. I have given it to 3 or 4 different people. I had 3 or 4 different people buy it because I played it with them. It's the kind of game where you talk someone over to the table because they're like, what is this thing that you're playing? And then they'll see you play it and you'll be like, why don't you just try around? And then next time you see them, they're like, oh, I went and bought that game. It's fantastic. It's just super solid.
Yeah, we have it here. I think you gave it to us, right, Andy?
Quite possibly. There's a theme of me giving people things I like.
Yeah, and the kids just have a blast. You know, when we have like the kids bringing their friends over, we set it up and they just absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things about that game is that it stretches so easily from like 5-year-olds to like 70-year-olds. Like, it truly is a game that's universally fun. As long as you don't hit the beak.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing too is that, you know, we're all equally bad and good at it. So, you know, you can get schooled by a 5-year-old. And at the same time, you know, you can think you got all the things down and you hit it just wrong and yeah, you're not going anywhere. We've had lots of plays. It's on Ray's Top 100 and we like setting it up with kids.
Dominion.
So yeah, the OG deck builder, right? The game that introduced deck building to the world, right? Yeah, so Dominion was pretty much a response to Magic, right? That was, you know, you having to spend more and more money to have your own deck, right? And that was becoming a bit of a problem because, you know, the money issue. And so the designer, you know, he was a Magic player, and he started testing out this game in the Magic tournaments, and when people would have their play days and everything, and people just started really liking it because he kind of created a mechanic that is very similar, but you don't need to. It's not a collectible, you know. It's a deck builder, right? And I mean, I think first time I played it was over at you guys' house. And I just was just fascinated by the simplicity of the mechanic, of the deck building mechanic. It's just so simple. You have your starting deck, you just shuffle it, you draw 5 cards, you see what you can do with those cards. Some of them give you money to buy more cards. Some of them you take an action to put more cards into your hand that maybe will give you money to buy more cards. And then once you're done, you just put it away and draw 5 new cards. That's it. It's just ABC, right? And which is, I can't remember now, action, buy, cleanup, right? And so I really love the simplicity of it and the depth of it. You know, you can become a very deep strategic game. And I was really considering like going down a deep dive into this game, but I think, you know, people who play in tournaments, they kind of play with all the expansions. So I feel like in a way it's circled back into the problem that Magic had, you know, that now I need all the expansions to be able to play this at a tournament level. So this is pretty much a game that I play at a recreational level here at our house. We play it almost like once a week because it's so easy to set up. You just pull a bunch of cards out, you just shuffle it and boom, and then you go. And to pack up, it's also super easy. And you can get like, and there's tons of, how many expansions are there? Like almost like 10 expansions or something, right?
I
think
think
they might be on 12. They said they were quitting at 10 and they lied.
I think here's our Dominion here. We have the base and 3 expansions, right? We have Intrigue, Menagerie, and Nocturne, right? And so, yeah, it's just fantastic mechanism, so simple, so elegant, and that has so many different expansions with whichever flavor you want to put on top of it. You can like customize your experience. That's the great thing about it. You know, you can like, sometimes you want a bit more of like intrigue in it. So you use a card from the intrigue where you want to like mess with other people's hands. Or sometimes you want to like play a game that's very rich. So you put the, what's the one that gives you the prosperity, that, you know, prosperity expansion, right? And so you can really kind of like customize it to like what you want. And there's something about the artwork. I think what put me off of this game was the logo, which I thought was hideous. And we have a thing for aesthetics, but if you take out the logo and the stuff, the rest is okay, right? And so I kind of like that retro feel of some of the artwork. The artwork is very irregular because it's not all done by the same artist. But some of the cards, especially in the newer editions, the cards are really pretty, really nice, you know. So I kind of like just diving into the artwork of the cards, you know, the snowy village, the black cat, you know, the witch and things like that. I just think it's got that kind of retro feel to it, you know, that I quite like, retro fantasy feel to it, that doesn't necessarily take itself too seriously. You know, that's not, you know, it's just there for you to look at. It's not asking you to become a character, you know, but it still does a bit of theme. And so, yeah, it's definitely, you know, I think this is probably one of the best Euro games of all time, you know, and it's definitely in my top 10 list of games that I like to play, you know. And the way I like to play it is I always try to build an engine. I always try to get a way to get a hand where I play absolutely all my cards. Even if that fails, I don't care. That's what I try to do.
I go for money, because money.
So
that's what I go for. Buy as much as I can. Sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I was saying it's funny because I like this game far more than Ray. This is one of my starter games. I love it. It's 31 on my list, 60 on Ray's. But I consistently lose to Ray because I focus on that. I need to try all the cards. I have to buy one of each cards because I want to play with pretty cards. And I don't care that I lose. I just have fun trying all the different mechanics and seeing how they work together and stuff. And so I'm not very good at grokking it, I would say, because I get easily distracted by, ooh, pretty card. I want that one.
It's really it's really hard to not do that. It's really fun to do that, but you got to focus. You got to be efficient, man. If you want to win, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't always play to win. So
yeah.
See,
I mean, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say we've played through it. We didn't keep track of our plays till probably we were here, right, Jen? Really? So we've probably played this as much as you've played Scythe, both digitally and in person. So we now just randomize. We pick the two. We're like, we're going to take base and we're going to take seaside. We're going to randomize what we get. And sometimes you look at those and you go, wow, they're all $5. Okay, I'm going to just buy gold till I can buy something else. I'm going to buy silver till I can get gold, till I can buy something else. But it is, pure and simple. This is one of the most foundational deck builders there. It's got a lot to it, and it's fun. And you beat me at viticulture all the time, so see, we're even.
Yeah, and it's one of those games that I've accepted that what I find fun is all the different cards and trying them out, and I'm okay that means I'm gonna lose most of the time. I'm okay. How we figured out how I can win is there are certain cards that are both victory points and action cards, and I love those because that's how I win. Because a lot of them give you victory points for the number of cards in your deck, and I can totally win that way. But I love it, just like what you were saying, William, is that I know a lot of people enjoy the aspect of building decks in Magic. Ray does. I don't want to. I want to sit down and play a game. I don't want to have to do prep work for it. I have to do that for my day job. Don't need to do that for games. And so I get to start and I get to build my deck as I go, and it's part of the experience. And I love that about it. And we've probably at this point played every expansion. We've gotten rid of a couple. When we moved, we culled just because of space. And we did get rid of a couple expansions we didn't like as much as the others. But we've played every expansion. We own, I would say, what, 7? We probably own, what, 9 of the 12. And we got rid of Dark Ages and Cornucopia, I think, and maybe one others, but those two for sure. Dark Ages, the first time I played it, this was a mistake, and don't do this, so learn from our mistake, is we thought, oh, new one, we want to try all these new cards, we're just play 10 cards from the Dark Ages deck. No, it was the worst game of Dominion I have ever played, and the longest. Oh my God. You don't play Dark Ages without mixing it in, preferably probably with something like Prosperity.
Dark Ages indicates dark.
Yeah, so when we first got the Intrigue expansion, we just used Intrigue cards, right? But then we realized that it did slow down the game because every Intrigue card gives you an option. Do this or do that. And you're like, So it's like analysis paralysis every single turn, right? Whereas Dominion is all about like, you do, and then move along, right? So now whenever we buy a new expansion, we try to look at their recommended thing to mix it up with the base game, to have dilute it a bit so it doesn't get too radical,
I just love randomizing it, and sometimes you end up with crazy powerful combinations, and sometimes you end up with a whole table of garbage. I just love that can happen, and then you just have to figure out who's going to get that amazing combination first, or how can you make this garbage into something that's edible?
Yep, absolutely. We have the randomizer on like our Kindles, and that's just what we do. We put it in and just randomize. Okay, we're going with it. We don't change anything out. Someone told me once, well, don't you get sick of it? You learn a routine. I'm like, do you play with the same 10 cards every time? Well, yes. Why?
Yeah, see, that's madness to me with Dominion, because to me, the beauty of Dominion is the variance, the ability to change it so much. And it's the same core mechanic, but it's such a different game when you just depending on what you have to choose from. Yeah, I love this one.
Yeah, I mean, just the base game, just the number of different possible combinations is something like astronomical, right? It's like more than the grains of sand and all the beaches, because all the permutations that you can have, right? And if you add in the expansions, it's just bananas.
Yep. Dominion. Dominion, you build your deck. This one, you're trying to take dice to number 7. That's really what it is. There's no segue. I'm really bad at them. That's what happens. Dice Hospital was a Kickstarter that really intrigued Jennie, actually. She's like, that looks really neat. And what it is the dice roll. You roll the dice at the beginning of the turn, and they go into ambulances. And then you're going to draft one of those. Bring it to your hospital, put it into the hospital, and your goal is to treat them. And you have to, every die you don't treat goes down a number. So the ones, if they're at a 1 and you don't treat them, they die. They go to the morgue. That's negative points and other problems. You don't want a full morgue. But as you treat them, you're adjusting your numbers, and you treat them by worker placement. You also get to draft a tile or a new worker at the beginning of each round. So you're either building up your hospital or adding additional workers to do more with your stuff. And they are things like take 2 blue dice up 1 number, and those 2 are now treated and they go up 1 number. Or take a one that is 1, 2, or 3 and add 2 to it or 3 to it, because you're going to radiology and this is someone who's broke their leg, and it goes with the colors of the dice. It's really interesting because your decision to draft that ambulance, and you have to draft 1, really changes how you treat and how you grow the hospital. But the dice are not, you're not rolling dice to do things. The dice are your patients that you have to deal with. And it turned out to be one. This one, I think we played it and went, okay, we're playing it again right after it. And then the next day we played it 2 more times, and it just, and I want to get it back to the table here soon. It's great.
Well, and I'm not going to say much because I have a feeling it's going to appear later in my list.
We're going to the crossroads. Andy's got Forgotten Waters. William brought the classic and the ultimate, Tigris and Euphrates. I'm going to talk about dressmaking because that sounds cool. And Jen is going to develop nuclear weapons with the Manhattan Project. So this one's kind of a heavier run. Even the Forgotten Waters is fun, but there's some stuff you can really do in that one.
Yeah, do you ever want to be a pirate? You can be a pirate. This game is great. It's absolutely delightful. We got this one. Plaid Hat had been bought, I believe, by Asmodee, and then had been let go by Asmodee and had become an independent publisher. And this is their first game that they independently published when they left Asmodee. And I'm a big fan of Plaid Hat. I've been following them since Summoner Wars came out, and I've always enjoyed their games. And Forgotten Waters is a game that is run entirely by an app. So you have an app, and the app has different numbers that you punch into it. And then they have all these different adventures, these narrative adventures that you do, where it gives you a setup on a map, and then you have these tiles, and they tell you which tiles to put into the bag to pull out. And so as you explore, you put more hexes onto the board, and it expands the sea as you're going through the sea. And you might find tiles that have no storm and it's sunny skies. You might find a tile that has no wind. You might find a tile that has a terrible storm. You might find a tile with a sea monster or with another pirate ship. And they have kind of a timer aspect because there's another ship that chases you down. And so you have to do these story points. And it does the crossroad system. So it's cooperative, but also competitive. So everybody has their own sub goals that they have to reach, and how they do that is with narratives. So everybody you get to pick a pirate. So maybe your pirate is the lazy pirate. Maybe your pirate is the industrious pirate. Maybe your pirate is the female pirate, or the scoundrel pirate, or the musical pirate, or the ghost pirate. And every pirate has a constellation on the front of the paper. And Plaid Hat has put out on their website printables, so you can print more copies as you use these consumable components. And you get, as you gain experience, you fill in circles on the constellation. You fill in a certain number of circles, and you get another part of your narrative added to your story, which gives you a character upgrade for your character. When you go into towns, everybody has to pick a role on the ship, and there's a timer. You have 2 minutes where everybody has to pick their role, and if you're the most infamous pirate, you have to pick first, and then it goes in order of infamy, which changes over the course of the game. Everyone has different roles for what they take control of. So one person has to manage the cannons, one person has to manage the crew, one person has to manage all these different components, and it's just really fun. I think they have 5 episodes up, and they are all fully voice acted. So you'll go into a town or onto a square, and it will say put in 697B, and you put 697B into the app and you hit go, and then it goes and tells you what to do. It tells you what the results are. And sometimes the results are for that specific player who went into that square. Sometimes the results are something that impacts the entire ship. We've played through 3 full playthroughs for adventures, which is a pretty significant chunk. We haven't played the later adventures. It's awesome. I cannot wait to play it with you guys. It is really, really fun. You know, you have to have something that has the app, which is all web-based. And then it's best if you have it hooked up to like a Bluetooth speaker or something so everybody can hear the thing. But when you go to a new location, one of my favorite things is that you'll go to this sea place, this port town, and it will read the narrative about the port town and where the bars are and what skullduggery is going down on the docks. And then it will just play seagull noises and lapping seawater or lapping waves in the background while you're sitting there talking. So it really does a good job of adding to the environment of being a pirate. And everybody has to make up their own pirate story where you do like a Mad Libs thing. So you get to put in like the name of a fruit and like the name of another pirate, and they have like a pirate name generator. It's just a nice balance between ridiculous and crunchy. I mean, there's definitely depth there. There's definitely a lot of thought there. But mostly it's kind of an experience type of game.
It was a blast.
Yeah, it's a really fun one.
Okay, you're up, William.
So yeah, another, is this a Euro game? I don't know, probably not, right? I mean, it's by Rainer Knizia, which is one of the greatest designers of all time. And so this, I don't think it quite qualifies as a Euro game because it's got a bit too much fighting in it, even though it's got a few Euro mechanics. It's really difficult to describe this game in a few words because everything is kind of interconnected. But you're basically you're putting tiles down. You draw a hand of tiles, and there are 4 different colors of tiles, and you're putting tiles down. If you put a tile down, nothing happens unless you have the corresponding leader of that color down as well. So if you put the leader down, then you put the tile down, you get a victory point of that color. So there's 4 colors of victory points, right? And so that's basically what you're doing at the beginning of the game. You've put a leader down, and then you can put a tile that would put a blue leader, then you can put like a blue tile, you get a blue victory point. And then the other person goes and does that on the other corner of the board, right? And as you start putting these tiles down, if you start forming these regions, which are kind of like a square, a 2x2 square, you can create a temple there. And once so you flip those tiles upside down and you put a temple down, now you're getting victory points every turn. You don't need to put tiles down anymore. Your temple now produces victory points for free. The thing is, as your cities, start growing, they might touch each other, and then problems arise because now you might have 2 leaders in the same component there of tiles in the map, and then you got to have a war basically, and then which you fight by throwing tiles from your hand, and also counting the tiles of the specific color that are on your side. And so you see that as you start producing more temples, you usually get weaker because you flip those tiles upside down so they don't count towards your forces anymore. On the other hand, the scoring mechanism of this game is great because you win if you have the most victory points in the color that you have the least. So if you've produced a bunch of victory points using red tiles or temples that produce red victory points, you kind of don't care about that anymore. You're worried about the green ones where you just have 1 or 2. So it's got this area control aspect where you're putting tiles down and expanding towards things, and then eventually there's going to be conflict, and you can kind of see how much power you have versus how much power the other person has. It's got this interesting balancing mechanic that if you're very strong in one thing, or if you've got a lot of victory points in one color, you don't really care that you get attacked and someone steals your temple away. because you've already done that. You want to go somewhere else. So there's this constant flow of interest, which I think is great, you know. And to me, like, the thing that I liked again is that the combat isn't, as I said, frivolous, in the sense that first time you play the game, you just want to figure out exactly how the combat works, right? So you don't even know how the combat works necessarily. You're like, so what counts? Because it's a bit fiddly. So second time, you've already figured it out, and you start trying to figure out whether you can win or not. And you're like, yeah, I can go into this fight because I know I'm going to win. I'm going to win that temple. Now I'm going to produce my victory points. But then suddenly you realize that after the combat is over, in the aftermath, you've destroyed a bunch of stuff in both cities, which have now joined together. So now you suddenly, you do this big war and this big fight, and you look at the board and like, I won this, you know, and it's kind of like, it's got the consequences of fighting, the consequences of battle, which is something that I want to see more in games that have fighting, like this kind of consequences. You've destroyed the landscape, and now you've inherited, you know, all this rubbish, you know. So I quite like it because of that. These two mechanics. So it's got like this tile laying, slow expansion, and then building up to a fight. But you also got to calculate what's going to be left over, because a lot of the tiles will be taken out of the game. And so I just think it's a fantastic game. We love it here. It can be, at first, it can be prone to a bit of table flipping, because, you know, you attack someone, then you win, and then they lose all their tiles, etc. But then after a while, you realize that that's going to happen all the time, and it doesn't really matter, because there's this constant flow of interest. You know, you know, if you had something very powerful that got taken away from you, you actually didn't want it anymore, because you got to focus on what is worst in your camp. So if you have like 100 points for red and just 2 for green, you don't care that people take away your red temple. You want to focus on the green. So this constant flow of interest is very interesting in this game, and it's a classic, right? It's considered like one of the greatest, you know, Reiner Knizia games. I think he's done a bunch of other games that follow the same kind of mechanics, you know, putting tiles down and putting leaders down, etc. Each leader bends the rules a little bit. Each tile has its own rules as well. You know, I think he's recently came out with one where I read the rules. I can't remember the names now, but he recently came out with one that I'm like, this is exactly Tigris and Euphrates, except instead of squares, it's hexagons, basically, you know. But yeah, this one is one that we really like, and we really like the theme as well. So yeah.
Excellent. All right.
Well, I do have a question regarding this.
Sure.
Why didn't you guys like it, Ray and Jennie?
We did actually like it, but we weren't going to end up playing it, and we knew it. It just really was. I liked it more than Jennie. But it really was, I knew it wasn't going to get played, and so did Jennie. And if it wasn't going to get played, there was no reason to keep it in our collection when, you know, there are people that we know would play it. Got it.
The thing for us with this game is that we play a lot more during the summer. It's like a Saturday morning board game, because it's there, you know, around the rivers, Tigris and Euphrates, right? And the art cover on the box is like daytime, so it's a game that we want to play during the day, you know. We don't want to play it at night. But now, since it's like winter here in Alaska, you know, if you wake up late in a Saturday, you know, it's already night. So we play it more during the summer, you know. It's a Saturday morning game, basically.
I think some of that's, you know, you feel it. It feels like you're in the desert when you play it. I think for me, it's too much of an area control game, and that's just not my forte. I think it's a good game. I think there's a lot of good mechanics in it. But again, I think just it was one of those ones that wasn't going to hit the table with us, because I don't think we were going to think of it. I can see why you think it's a summer game, though, because to me, I feel like I'm in the middle of the desert when I play it.
Yeah.
And it's yellow, and Yancey is the newest one.
Yeah.
We've upgraded. We've added a couple of sides to the shape. That's the upgrade.
Yeah.
All right, Jen. Oh, wait. This is mine. Man, I messed up these names. Next time I need to proofread instead of do the PowerPoint an hour before.
Well, actually, I'm sure what it was, Ray, is you were just copying mine from 8 and you didn't change the title.
That's correct, but right now it's late and I'm a slow moving night person, so I refuse to accept blame for that at this particular junction. Rococo, you're making dresses and it's really fun with it. The different types of workers you can take your apprentice and you can send them to certain places, but they're not the ones that you can send to the queen, you know. So as these options come up and your availability of where you can place these workers shifts throughout the game, you want to get more workers, but those workers have different levels of capability. You've got all sorts of things, including resource gathering and area control. You want to get the right dress to the right spot. You're trying to get to the top floor where you get bonus points, and there's a lot going on and you got to think it through. So we've talked about it a bit for a while, but Rococo is one that the theme didn't grab me, but the actual way it plays did, and it plays very well. But you can still feel the theme. You're still trying to get that in place. So I think this is really an underrated game.
I think that so much of it is on a lot of these is that you have to do stuff in an order. I mean, you have to go get your materials before you can make your dress, before you can sell it. And I think that's where you really feel the theme in a lot of these games is that there's definitely a procedure, and if you don't follow the procedure, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's, I think, where you really feel the theme and you feel the weight of the game.
All right, no, you're up, Jen. See, you get to blow stuff up with the Manhattan Project now.
Okay. Yes. And this is a great worker placement game. And what's really cool about this is you have specialized workers, much like Rococo. Rococo, it's cards, and you have, a silver, gold, and bronze. And this one, you have scientists and engineers, and they are different meeples. And they can there's a certain place that only one or the other can go. And so you really have to manage your workers, and you start out with just general ones. You have to send them to school and get them to be the certain ones you want. And the thing is that you have to do this upgrading, and you have to consider really what your meeples can do. And that's what's really fascinating about this, because again, there's an order. You have to go get your, you have to produce your different types. If you need your uranium, you need your plutonium. And then you got to create the bombs. You can put them on fighters. You can test them. There's all these different phases. And if you don't do them in the right order, again, it doesn't happen. Yeah, it's kind of a dark theme. Obviously, you're building, nuclear weapons, but it doesn't feel, most of it's about testing weapons. And so it doesn't, I think, feel as dark as it could. There's definitely some different incarnations, but we like the plain, simple base version of Manhattan Project. And I think the theme comes through. I love those specialized workers. And I think this game does that really, really well. And I know Ray also likes it, but he put it down in the 60s. I don't know why.
Because I'm right and you're wrong?
Oh, we all know I'm right.
All right. So 5. I'm looking forward to this one because I'm not aware of Inhuman Conditions, so we talked about that one before we started. And then I'm Rurik this time. Let's see if I screwed up the